one bad Zoom setup can kill your fundraise before you even introduce yourself. And after seeing 99% of founders sabotage calls in my time as a VC, I realized what separates the winners is all in how you show up on screen when you jump onto Zoom or Google Meets, and it's all decided in that first 30 seconds. So in this video, I'm going to show you the simple Zoom tweaks that makes investors instantly see you as investable without requiring a Hollywood studio to look professional. And look, I know this works because as a VC, I was doing 5 to 10 intro calls every week and saw founders sabotage incredible opportunities purely due to their meeting setups. And all you need to do is copy this and you stand out immediately. But quickly, first, comment down below with anything in fundraising you're in need of help with, and I'll make sure I make a video for you addressing exactly that problem that you need. But to start, we need to address the brutal misconception about Zoom calls so that you don't make the same mistake. Because most founders think as long as their internet works, they're good to go. But here's what they don't tell you. Investors are making split-second judgments about whether you're professional enough to handle millions of their dollars. And it starts with how you look and sound on camera, as much as that sounds crazy. Week after week when I was a VC, I would jump on intro calls with founders who had genuinely exciting businesses, whether it was great metrics, huge markets, solid teams. But call after call, I found myself struggling to take them seriously because I could barely really see them, or I could barely hear them, or they just looked completely unprofessional on camera. And that gave me a really bad first impression of them. You know, I remember one founder in particular, a brilliant guy, building an incredible B2B SaaS company. But our first Zoom call, he was sitting in what looked like a dark room. I could barely make out his face. There was echo bouncing everywhere, and he looked completely disheveled. I felt zero confidence in him and was genuinely ready to pass because of it, purely because of his setup. But something made me agree to meet him in person. And the thing is, when I did meet him in person, he was amazing. He was professional, he was sharp, someone I genuinely wanted to back. And we ended up getting very, very close to investment. We were literally last stages, and unfortunately, another reason why we didn't do it. But here's the scary part. I almost never gave him that chance, purely because of his terrible Zoom setup, purely because of how he set himself up when we started talking. Now, to understand how to fix this, you need to think about your Zoom or Google Meet setups like this framework. There are 4 technical pillars that determine whether an investor takes you seriously, and you want to try and get all 4, but you need to have at least 3 in terms of what I call kind of the acceptable line. Okay, so pillar 1 is visual presence, whether investors can actually see your face clearly and professionally. Pillar 2 is a personal connection, making sure that you're building rapport, not hiding behind slides. Pillar 3 is audio quality, where investors can actually hear you without strain or distraction. And pillar 4 is technical reliability, making sure your hardware and software doesn't kill the conversation and prepping in the right manner. Because the thing is, most founders start with a setup that looks like this. Maybe their laptop camera works, but it's low quality. Their mic doesn't work that well, and investors can barely hear them. And while you could spend thousands on professional equipment, the fastest way to level up is to fix these 4 pillars with simple solutions that you can get for very cheap or free, and gives you in a much better way the ability to create that first impression with investors for your funding round. So step 1. Step 1 is all about solving your visual presence. I want you to look at this difference. I'll show you the first one. And now the second one, right? This is the same person, same room, but it's a completely different impression. Now, the only thing that was changed was adding one light. Like no lighting, it just makes me look unprofessional and hard to trust. Like I'm calling you from my basement or something. But just adding one light in front of me completely transforms how professional I appear on camera. Now, look, I have a professional lighting setup for these videos. You don't need to spend the $150, $200 that I did. But a basic ring light or an LED panel, which you can get for $20 to $30, will completely transform how you look on camera. You just want to make sure it's either positioned directly in front of you or just to the side and not directly behind you or directly to the side of you. And by the way, making sure that you have a HD camera, like this is obviously a 4K camera, but you don't need this. Just making sure you have a HD camera, whether it's 720 or 1080p, A cheap webcam can do that so that investors can actually see you clearly. Also really helps. Now, step 2 is a personal connection. So here's where 90% of founders destroy their chances in an intro meeting with an investor without even realizing it. A lot of the time you spent hundreds of hours making a pretty looking pitch deck, and your whole ego and your whole process of your fundraise is based around it. So when you get into meetings, you feel like, look, I've made this amazing looking pitch deck. It means that all I need to do is now show investors this, and oh yeah, they're going to love me. So what you do is you have to show everyone as it's the main thing you've worked on. So as soon as you jump on the call, you maybe not even building rapport, but you just decide to share screen, and for the next 30 minutes, all the investor sees is slide after slide with no human connection. I can't tell you how many calls I sat through where I completely lost interest. Not necessarily because the business was bad, because I felt like I was just staring at a PowerPoint presentation instead of getting to know the founder as a person. And not only that, but once you do that and all you have is a slide, all you're doing is pitching. You're pitching all this time, you're not creating a conversation, and you're not building rapport with anyone. All you're doing is you're just trying to information overload. And when you think about it, investors aren't just evaluating your business model. They're trying to decide if they want to work with you for the next 5 to 10 years, and more importantly, whether they want to spend more time with you in the next couple months deciding if they're going to make an investment into you. So they're investing in you as much as your business. But the thing is, if in the intro call, all they see is your slides, how can they possibly build that trust and connection? They can't, and it's never going to happen. Now, I'm not saying you shouldn't share a deck at all. Of course, some founders are definitely better using it for calls. But if you're going to share a deck, you either go in and out of screen share, so you show a slide to make your point, then you stop sharing, and you come back to face-to-face conversation, or you need to ask them to make sure that in their settings on Zoom, they've got side view when they're presenting, or you want to use something like Ecamm or OBS that allows you to quickly go in between them like I have here. So, you can quickly see what I'm doing on my Notion here, but you could do it for your Zoom slides, etc. Because the thing is, the slides just support your story, not replace you as the main character. You don't want to hide behind your deck when you should be building that crucial personal connection. And that's what brings us on to step 3. Because if an investor can't really hear you properly, how are they really going to know if you're good enough? Step 3. That's audio that doesn't kill your credibility. So nothing destroys investor confidence faster than struggling to hear what you're saying. I've been on calls where founders were in busy coffee shops where you could barely hear it. Construction was happening outside, or there was so much echo, I couldn't focus on anything they said, and all I was thinking about was like, just trying to understand what they said rather than, am I interested or not? And secondly, if you can't figure out basic audio for a Zoom call, and that goes for everything, whether it goes for your visuals or the next pillar as well, what does that say about your attention to detail when handling their investment? How are they really going to understand what you are doing if they can't hear the intricacies and nuances of your answers? Now, the simplest fix is getting a basic USB microphone like this. It plugs right into your computer. It makes you sound 10 times more professional than your laptop's built-in mic. But if you can't get an external mic, at least make sure you're in a quiet room with soft furniture, so couches, making sure you have pictures on the wall, carpets. What that does is it absorbs sound instead of creating echo. You want to get close to your laptop mic. If you only have a laptop mic, don't sit really far away. Make sure you can stay interrupted for the rest of the meetings, and people know this is such an important meeting that you do that. And this brings us on to the last step that really ties everything together to make sure you have an investable setup. So, step 4, which is a technical setup. Don't let your hardware or software kill your connection. Because the biggest thing here is making sure that you have solid internet, so you're not freezing, cutting out every 30 seconds, because nothing kills rapport building faster than when investors are struggling to have a basic conversation with you because your connection keeps dropping. I've been on calls where founders would freeze mid-sentence or cut out during the most important parts of their pitch, which if repeated doesn't really make sense, or have such laggy video that it felt like talking to a robot, or if you're only having a 15 to 30 minute intro call, wasting 5 to 10 minutes of the time because you're just focusing on this. And you can't build that crucial personal connections if investors can barely see or hear you consistently, or there's problems, or It just feels disjointed because everything's failing. And not only that, it wastes so much precious time to show investors how great you are, which we don't have enough time usually anyway. So you're just making it harder and harder for yourself to be successful. So if your Wi-Fi is spotty, use an Ethernet cable, find a better location, or for that month, at least upgrade your internet if you can, whether or not it's closing other applications that might be using bandwidth. Test everything before you jump into these calls during the day to make sure everything's correct. Because I just want to give you a reality check. This stuff may seem really basic, but here's what I learned as a VC and seeing 500 plus meetings. Investors are looking for reasons to say no, not a reason to say yes. They see hundreds of pitches, and poor Zoom quality is an easy way for them to mentally check out before you even start talking about your business. And this stuff is so easy to fix, and it's the first impression that really causes you to have a great meeting or a not great meeting. Because your Zoom setup is your first impression before you even started speaking. It's how investors judge your professionalism, your attention to detail, your ability to execute. Get it right and they'll focus on the right things, i.e. you as a founder of your business. But if you get it wrong, and they'll spend the whole call distracted by how unprofessional you look and sound, or I'm not really feeling connected to the founder, or everything keeps cutting out. It can literally be the difference between getting that second meeting and getting a polite rejection because of these details that are this small. You don't want to let poor video quality or lighting be the reason. You don't want to let sound be the reason. You don't want to let the reason why is because you've just shared a set of slides and not built a personal connections with them. You're just wasting time because one good light, a smart screen share, decent audio, reliable internet, that's it. And you only have to spend one afternoon getting this right, and you'll immediately look more professional than 99% of the founders see every week, actually be able to talk about your business in the right way, and get to second meetings in a much more structured way. Now, that's how you build a Zoom or Google Meet setup that actually gets you to the second meetings and sets the first impression in the right manner. But what happens when you're actually having a conversation with investors and they're asking you questions and you don't know how to answer those hard questions that really makes investors love you? Well, if you want to, check out this next video where I give you the step-by-step process on how you answer investor questions in the right manner that makes them love you and want to invest.